In his poem entitled Maybe, spoken word artist Harry Baker, he talks about the hard seasons of life and how those are the things that can shape us. In his poem, he says this: "Not every day's a battle, not every part of life's a war. It is the times that lie between that needs to be worth fighting for. Remember what this moment is. You may not have chosen this, but one day you will be someone who rose from this. If you see the same in others, you can notice this. Sometimes we're too involved in things to see the hope in it. So show some this. There's no eclipse without some kind of glow in it." In many ways, I think this is in keeping with what Paul is commending to the church in Colossae. And he's answering our questions about what next and what now. After having learned to live, what's next? What Paul would say to us is he would say, live. Continue to grow in wisdom and live as that wisdom matures. In your living, grow in your knowledge and understanding of who God is in the world and in your life. And out of that living with the Lord will come increasing wisdom. But he also couples that living with a purpose. In verse 10, he says this: "So that you may live a life worthy of the Lord and please him in every way, bearing fruit in every good work." Now that you've learned to live, your next step is to live out what you know, to live with a purpose. In the same way that a doctor, after having studied medicine, is to now practice medicine, or a lawyer, after having learned the law, is to practice law, or a counselor, after having learned the art of counseling, is to now counsel, or an artist, after learning the theory of art, is to then produce works of art that makes our hearts soar. Now we are to live with the God who loves us and saved us, that we have learned about. But that living, it's to do something. It's to produce fruit. It's to be encapsulated in deeds. There ought to be increasing evidence in our lives that Christ is making a difference. In another letter, Paul would identify the fruits of a life lived with Christ as the fruit of the Spirit. He would list a number of them in Galatians 5:22. He would say, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience or forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law." Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. These, in increasing measure, ought to be the things that mark our lives. Not immediately, but slowly by slowly, surely by surely. The thing when we review these lists or these qualities, these fruits of the Spirit, so often we think of these qualities as things that are just displayed in our personal lives, as acts of personal piety. And it's true that joy and peace and patience, they can and will be displayed in my personal life as I walk with the Holy Spirit in my life. There should be places wherein I'm maturing in love or joy or gentleness. When I interact with my children or my wife or my neighbors. The Spirit's work in my life, over time spent with the Lord, it will produce a peace in me that is not dependent on my circumstances, or a joy that doesn't require external celebration. And yet, in Colossians, Paul is wedding fruit with my deeds. The external ways that my faith is lived out. There ought to be a way that the Spirit's fruit is displayed in my pursuits of justice, in my love of enemies, and my passion for God's renewal. For if I'm only kind to my family and friends, what is so kind about that? If I have to ask, where am I growing in kindness? I have to ask, where am I growing in kindness with those that I don't like, or those that I don't enjoy, or with those that I view as my enemy or my rival? Where am I being gentle with those that are different than me, or with those that I'm inclined to view as outsiders or undeserving of gentleness? If I'm only gentle with those who are gentle with me, well then what's so gentle about that? If I am only self-controlled with those who are similarly expressing self-control towards me, then am I really bearing fruit in keeping with God's Spirit? Because Paul weds our fruit with our deeds. He's requiring us to see the connections between the Spirit of God and the mission of God. For it will be in precisely these places that our witness to the world will become clearest. You see, when we, as those who have been rescued by Christ, exercise love towards our enemies, when we cultivate joy in the midst of sorrowful situations, when we work for peace when we're surrounded by violence, when we display patience in the face of immaturity and vitriol, when we show kindness to the unkind, when we value goodness in the company of those bent on evil, when we pursue faithfulness over pragmatism, when we demonstrate gentleness in a culture of anger, and when we practice self-control in a society drunk on immediate gratification, then will we be living in a manner in keeping with the gospel. And God will get the glory, and we will find ourselves learning to truly live.